Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for March 5th, 2023 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Today was overcast for much of the day, though the sun did come out for a little bit in the morning and then again in the late afternoon. The winds were moderate from the west, which is a decent wind for us, so we had a pretty good day. The ice on the bay continues to melt, and now there's just a little bit around the edges and in the marina. And most of the snow that was on the Hawk platform melted throughout the afternoon with the warm temperatures in the low 40s. There were a lot of bald eagles around. Here we have 3 immatures chasing each other around. One of the highlights in the morning was a flock of 5 purple finches. And you can see the facial pattern here where you have this dark, light, dark pattern. And you can also see the quite forked tail. Here we have 3 hooded mergansers in flight. And notice how small the white on the head of the males can get. Remember, when they're swimming, they sometimes really display that and it becomes a really big white patch. But when they tuck that down, it becomes very small. Here's a mourning dove that made a close pass over the platform. Here's a flock of common goldeneyes. Notice the round white areas on the face of the males, and also notice the large white patches in the wings. Throughout the day, we had a small number of flyover horned larks. Here are 5 bald eagles sitting out in the eagle tree, and at one point there were 8 perched bald eagles between this tree and another tree. Here's a house sparrow, which is really a species we don't see a ton from the Hawk Watch platform. There's a fair number in some of the nearby neighborhoods, but something that doesn't stray over too often, so kind of fun to see. Here's an immature bald eagle that was born 2 summers ago. Here's a pileated woodpecker that flew into the tree line off to the left side of the hawk platform, and I really like her hairdo. And I say her because we know it's a female because it does not have the red mustache that the males have. Here we have some tundra swans leaving the bay, and there were around 23 tundra swans on the bay when I arrived this morning, but they left pretty early on and we didn't have any more the rest of the day. Here we have an interesting bird. This is a juvenile bald eagle, meaning born last summer. We see that even trailing edge to the wing because all of the feathers are the same age. And 2 more things. First of all, the bird is banded. We see a band here on the leg. And maybe the most obvious thing is that the bird doesn't have a tail. So who knows what this eagle went through, but it seemed to be able to function and fly perfectly fine even without a tail, but kind of a funny thing to see. We had a great look at this adult red-shouldered hawk, which was the first one for this month. And as it was coming by, there was a group of 4 American crows that was coming the other way that decided to stop and mob the hawk. And I like this photo, which gives a nice size comparison between the red-shouldered hawk and an American crow. Here's another bald eagle, and these are often called 4th-year types. They're the ones that look mostly like an adult, but there's still quite a bit of dark in the head and tail and some white splotching underneath. And a lot of times people say the head on these look kind of like an osprey, just that combination of white and dark. And here is a full adult bald eagle. You can see that the head and tail are pure white with no black or brown in them, and the wings and body are just completely brown. Here's a group of snow geese, and snow geese seem to be on the move today. We had over 800. But we had very few Canada geese or tundra swans migrating, so kind of interesting that those species weren't in sync today. Here we have 2 common grackles, and notice the long tails that grackles have. It's a different silhouette than you see on something like red-winged blackbirds, which have a shorter tail. And European starlings have an even shorter tail than that. This Canada goose flew by pretty close, so I snapped his photo too. Here's another look at a horned lark. This was probably my favorite bird of the day. This is an adult male dark-morph rough-legged hawk. So rough-legged hawk is a buteo in the same genus as red-tailed hawk and red-shouldered hawk. Roughlegs are more of a northerly species. They don't go very far south in the winter. Some of them go down through Pennsylvania, maybe into the mid-Atlantic, but they're more of a northern species. And they're kind of lanky compared to a red tail. Red tails are big and bulky. Rough legs, their wings are just a little bit longer and just have a bit of a different flight style to them. Now, the one unique thing about them for buteos in the east is that they come in 2 different color morphs that are both pretty common. There's light morphs and dark morphs, like this one. So this one is actually an adult male, and there's a couple ways we can see that. First of all, adult males are usually the really dark ones like this. We know it's an adult because the trailing edge of the wing is dark, and that's a field mark that we see a lot when we're aging red-tailed hawks as well. So that's a pretty consistent thing among the Buteos, is that the juveniles don't really have that dark of a trailing edge, but the adults do have a dark trailing edge to the wing. Also, if we take a look at the tail, we see that it has a lot of tail bands, and we'll take a look at the top side in a minute. But it's the adult males that really have a lot of bands on the tail compared to the juveniles or the adult females. If we take a look at the top side of the bird, we can see what I was talking about with all these tail bands. Another interesting thing to note is that the light morph rough-legged hawks have kind of a white rump patch similar to what you see on northern harriers, but the dark morphs like this do not have that. And here's one more look at those tail bands. And also notice that it holds its wings up in a little bit of a V, a little bit of a dihedral. That's characteristic for this species. And also when we first spotted this bird, it was hover hunting. So it was high over the marsh, flapping, but just staying in place, looking down below it. And if it saw prey down below, then it would dive down to grab it. That's how they hunt. You'll also see red tails hunting in that same manner, but not every species does it. For instance, I don't think you'll see red-shouldered hawks doing that. So sometimes we can look at that kind of hunting behavior to aid in identification. You can also contrast it with the hunting behavior of northern harriers, which cruise low over marsh and grassland areas. You won't see harriers up high, hovering and looking down below. They stay down lower to the marsh. I had my first turkey vultures for the season today, and we ended up with a total of 22 of them. And here's one coming in. It looks kind of funny because it's got its head tilted to the side a little bit. But you can see that turkey vultures, they hold their wings up in a dihedral or a V shape. You can see that their head does not have any feathers on it, so you're seeing that red skin. And overall, they're kind of unique black and white pattern, or silver. Here we have another look at it as it's going overhead, and this is just classic turkey vulture in a glide silhouette. So again, you get that pattern of dark along the body and the wing coverts, but then the actual flight feathers themselves are a silvery color. We also see that the head looks relatively small just because it doesn't have feathers on it. Now this silhouette can be very close to the silhouette of golden eagles. So sometimes we have to look pretty carefully to make sure that we're not just writing off a bird as a turkey vulture when it's actually a golden eagle. But that small head is one way that we can tell them apart. Here we have a juvenile red-tailed hawk, so meaning one born last summer. We know it's a red-tailed hawk because of the dark patagial bars in the shoulder area here and the belly band across the breast. See how clean the upper breast is, and then it has a belly band? Species like juvenile red-shouldered hawks, they have sort of banding all the way up through the upper breast, but on red tails it's usually pretty clean up here, and then you have the distinct belly band. So the dark patagial bars and belly band are good field marks for all red-tailed hawks, and we know this one's a juvenile because it does not have that bold trailing edge to the wing, relatively faint one, and the tail is slightly banded. It's more of a brownish tail. It's not the red tail of the adult red-tailed hawks. Here we have an adult red-tailed hawk. So again, we see those dark patagial bars in the shoulder area and the belly band, but this one is an adult because it has a bold dark trailing edge to the wings and it has the red tail. So we don't see any banding, and from below the tail looks kind of pinkish, but if we saw the top side of that tail, it would look more red. Here we have an adult bald eagle, and you see it does have a little bit of black still in the tail. I'm not sure if that's a feather that just hasn't been replaced yet, or if it's just a little bit dirty. And towards the end of the day, the sun came out and it actually got pretty nice, and we heard that familiar bugling call and looked up, and here came 5 Sandhill Cranes. And just a little while before that, I had said that I was surprised that we hadn't seen any cranes yet that day. So they showed up right on time, I think. Here's another look at the cranes as they went by. You can see they kind of have a red cap on the head, and they're just sort of a grayish color overall. And notice the overall way that they fly. They have long legs trailing behind, and then they hold their necks out straight when they fly. The most similar species that we see would be great blue herons, and great blue herons, when they fly, usually have their neck curved into an S. So that's one way that we can tell them apart. But also, if you watch them carefully, you'll see that great blue herons bow their wings a bit more, and the way they flap is quite different. Sandhill Cranes, when they flap, it's kind of a funny flap where it's kind of it looks a little bit stiff, and they end on like a sudden upstroke. So if you get a chance to see Sandhill Cranes and great blue herons flying, notice that, and you'll be able to pick up that difference from a distance. Also be careful, because occasionally you'll see great blue herons flying with their neck stretched out. They usually just do it for a short period of time, then they curl it back into an S. But just because you see a bird with a straight neck, it could possibly be a great blue heron, so make sure you're using other field marks as well. The 5 cranes went by, and then a little while later they came back, and 3 of them actually landed out on the island in front of us across the bay, while the other 2 circled around. If we take a look at the eBird checklist for today, I had 50 species, and of course, as always, I'll put a link to this down below in the description if you want to check out all the photos and the complete list. And looking at the HawkCount report for migrants, today we had 22 turkey vultures, 4 bald eagles, 1 red-shouldered hawk, 2 red-tailed hawks, and 1 rough-legged hawk, for a total of 30 migrating raptors. And looking at the forecast, tomorrow's looking overcast with flurries and snow showers possible. Temperatures in the low to mid-30s and light northeast winds. So might be a little bit of migration. It's an unfavorable wind direction, but it'll be relatively light. So should be a pleasant day to be out birding when it's not snowing. At least it's not going to be super windy. So should be a good day to pick through the ducks and stuff on the bay, but wouldn't expect to see a lot of raptors. For Tuesday, looking partly cloudy with gusty winds, especially in the afternoon. High 34, winds northwest at 20 to 30 miles per hour. So those are pretty strong winds. I wouldn't really expect anything to be migrating. Might be a good day to hide in the car and watch from there. And for Wednesday, looking cloudy with a few flurries. High 34, winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. So those winds are starting to get on the high side. Again, I wouldn't expect a ton of migration, and those northwest winds can be quite cold. All right, so today was a pretty good day. I think every other day so far felt like more of a duck watch than a hawk watch, but today we finally had some good looks. We picked up red-shouldered and rough leg, so finally felt like a real day of hawk watching, and there were quite a few people who stopped by to say hello and hang out for a while, so that was a lot of fun too. Hope you can make it out soon to the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. We're there every day until the end of May, so come out, although the winds aren't looking very good for the next week or so, but be sure to keep watching these videos and I'll let you know when it's looking good. From Lyco Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.